Welcome to episode 189 of the Half Point Per Podcast. It is great to be back after a couple week hiatus. I am your host, Evan Riggs, joined as always by Dalton Willie. Dalton, we may have missed the finale of the regular season, and it was a really quite disgusting finale. I think one or two teams in our main league scored over 100 points. A lot of tough days out there, but the fantasy playoffs are on the horizon, which means what we've been waiting for all year is finally here. And which handcuff running back is going to win everybody their league this year?
And they're out there. I don't know which one it is yet, but I think it's Sean Tucker.
We've got a fun show coming to you guys today. Obviously, we're talking fantasy playoffs, some general strategies. We kind of talk about those every year. So if you've heard this portion of the show before, probably won't be too different than some years past, but we'll see. We'll see what Dalton has up his sleeve. But we're going to talk about some guys we trust, some guys we don't in our lineups, some potentially pretty big names on both ends of that, I think. So that'll be fun. But Dalton, I mean, where we have to start is in Indianapolis, the center of the NFL universe this week. And that is Philip Rivers is back at age, I believe, 44. And by all indications, he is the starting quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts this weekend against the Seattle Seahawks. Your reaction from a fantasy perspective is?
Disgusted. First of all, I just want to say
his over-under in passing yards 152.5 right now, to give folks an idea of what we're thinking about.
I just want to point out real quick, we were robbed from getting to do victory laps because Daniel Jones was slowly imploding game over game for the Indianapolis Colts. We were robbed of that, and if they re-signed him, I hope we don't do this whole thing next year. Philip Rivers having a passing line of 152, which, by the way, Justin Fields never had a line that low this year.
If Anthony Richardson's eye was fine and he was the starter, would his line be higher or lower than 152.5?
It would be higher, which is, I mean, he could chuck it 152 yards if he really felt like it. That's the other thing we're robbed of is Anthony Richardson was assaulted by a rubber band and broke his face.
Yes, that did happen.
And we've been robbed of Anthony Richardson starting and robbed of Jason Bean starting, all for Philip Rivers.
That's the thing. Like, this is probably 80% me having a KU football bias. Why I do at this point, I don't know, but I do. Why are you carrying Jason Bean for multiple years if you can't start him at quarterback in this situation? I mean, I get it. Like, you're 8-5. You're playing for the playoffs. But has there ever been a grandpa start an NFL game, Dalton? Like, if not, that's about to happen this weekend.
Not only a grandpa, but he could just roll out his kids and have a starting lineup. He didn't make the list, but this also made me strongly consider, just so everybody's aware of how bad I feel for the Colts right now. I strongly considered Jonathan Taylor out of the circle of trust.
Wow.
Because even last week, it didn't look great. And I don't think it's going to get any better with Rivers in.
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably not getting any better with Philip Rivers. If I want to put on my positivity hat for a second, you know, Shane Steichen offense, pretty simple. One read. I think Philip Rivers is probably smart enough that read is probably going to be determined pre-snap a lot of times. You know, we've seen Joe Flacco, who cannot be much more mobile than Philip Rivers, obviously have some really nice games. Now, Flacco hasn't been retired for 4 years like Philip Rivers. He does not look like he has been drinking beer for 4 years like Philip Rivers does when you see him at his press conference. But there's at least a chance that Philip Rivers can do enough, like some under routes, like some stuff in the flats, that this offense can at least be functional. I think that's probably the ceiling, though, is functional. And that's obviously a far cry from what we've been getting. I do think, though, Jonathan Taylor, like in some of his biggest games, yes, it's been because the offense has been moving the ball, but also he's just had some runs where he has just made it happen himself. He's just got that upside any given week that I think you just have to still trust him as probably a top 12 running back at the position. I just struggle to find too many other guys that I trust more than him. And then Tyler Warren's kind of the same deal where who am I benching him for at tight end? Like you just can't do it. I cannot imagine a scenario. Maybe if you picked up like Harold Fannin earlier in the season and you've had both of those guys all year. But here's the thing. Is Tyler Warren going to get some quarterback snaps the rest of the way? I don't feel like that's impossible.
It's definitely possible. He played it at Penn State. It's in their playbook. What I will say, if we're being positive Paulies over here about Philip Rivers starting, he was a head coach and he ran Shane Steichen's offense as a head coach. And him and Shane Steichen actually talked weekly about game planning. Yeah. So he's not unfamiliar with the offense. He might be unfamiliar.
The last thing I'm worried about is his brain. I'm not worried about his brain.
No. Physically, he might be unfamiliar with the monsters in the NFL. I know he's played them before, but they're new, they're back, and they're younger. I mean, the Colts this week are playing the Seahawks, which might be the best defense in the NFL and the deepest defensive line rotation in the NFL.
What do you have? What's the over-under for that game?
42.5 with a 13.5 spread. I'll let you guess who it's favored towards.
So Colts around 2 touchdowns, like around 13, 14 points is their implied total in that then. And this, unless you play in a league where, you play the week 18, this won't affect you in fantasy, but just real life perspective, if they make Philip Rivers play the Houston Texans in week 18, I mean, I might be so uncomfortable I can't even watch like what might happen to Philip Rivers in that game.
Well, that week 18 game is important. Likely will be important for them to make the playoffs.
That may be for the playoffs.
And Daniel Jones isn't coming back. I don't think we actually said it, but he tore his Achilles. So there is no Daniel Jones coming back.
Riley Leonard, possibly. But I mean, who knows what's going to happen over the next couple of weeks with that quarterback. Like if Philip Rivers plays well, he's going to be the guy. It seems like.
Yeah. I would like to know what the definition of well is in Shane Steichen's mind.
Probably if he just survives, like if he is just passable, I think that's all he can ask for. I don't think I've ever seen a quarterback, never mind how old he is. Have you ever seen a quarterback get pulled off the street week 15 of the NFL season
for a playoff team
after 4 years for a playoff team? Just any team, but especially a playoff team.
No. Okay. Let's play a quick game with Philip Rivers.
Okay.
Is there anybody you would start him over?
JJ McCarthy.
That's so disrespectful.
It's the truth. Have more on that later.
Shedeur Sanders?
No, I'm starting Shedeur Sanders over him.
Kirk Cousins.
No, starting Kirk Cousins over him, even without Drake London.
I can't go any lower.
Just say, I think we've hit the
Tyler Shuck. I mean, he had 22 points last week.
Yeah, you gotta keep rolling with Tyler Shuck.
That's where we're at, folks. It's playoff race time. I'm sure there are people depending on Daniel Jones and the Colts offense for sure.
Dude, just imagine being in a super flex league and you're starting Philip Rivers this week. I almost want to go pick him up in my super flex dynasty league just to look at it, just to look at on my roster.
Okay, let's do that real quick. In Superflex, how low down wide receiver would you have to go? Like wide receiver 36 before Philip Rivers?
God, what do you think the wide receiver 36 scores on any given week?
8.5. I'm looking at it right now.
Okay, 8.5. I was gonna say like 8 points is probably a good Philip Rivers game this week. So I think that's probably a pretty good bar. Maybe it's slightly lower, just because the wide receiver 36 on any given week has the upside, I think, to do more than what Philip Rivers. I think like give me like the wide receiver 42 would be about my line.
Hollywood Brown.
Yeah, I'd start Hollywood Brown over Philip Rivers, or Philip Rivers over Hollywood Brown. That would be about where the decision point would have to be, I think.
What about the wide receiver 47, who's Brian Thomas Jr.?
Well, okay, yeah, I'd start Brian Thomas Jr. Are you starting any Colts receiver? Obviously, like Alec Pierce has been good. Michael Pittman's had his moments. Josh Downs, if you're in a deep league, Josh Downs is always kind of a nice guy to throw out there to get between 5 to 9 half PPR points. Any interest in any of those three going forward? Because for me, I just can't.
No, I'm not starting any of them. I would be actively looking for waiver wire ads over them right now. I just don't know. Like, in all honesty, the person I feel most confident about as a wide receiver on that team that would fit with Philip Rivers going way back is Josh Downs. But Josh Downs hasn't had a great season.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much of that's schematic versus Daniel Jones. But Josh Downs was probably like the one I feel most comfortable with.
He's going to be the guy with the lowest ADOT.
Yes.
Which is don't know this for a fact, but if I had to guess, we're going to see a lot of low ADOT trying to really scheme it up with some misdirection in this offense.
Yeah, a lot of shotgun RPO. Like, it's going to be if Philip Rivers goes under center once, I'm going to be aghast at the coaching decisions.
He might be able to do under center play action pass quicker than Kirk Cousins. Maybe he should be started ahead of Kirk Cousins this week.
If Philip Rivers has to turn his back to the defense, that's elder abuse.
This is already elder abuse. So I think we've passed the point of the Colts caring about that. What I will say, oh my God, I lost my train of thought. Oh man. I don't know if you've been paying attention to the practice clips that are coming out. There was just some clips of him throwing just, like to a receiver and just on air scout drills. And the first day it was like, man, that ball is really in the air a long time. And then today the reporter made a point to say he has a little more zip on the ball today. It's like, okay.
It's just it's gonna be most watched TV for all the wrong reasons.
That first Philip Rivers pick and the pouty face he makes after it, or do grandpa still make pouty faces? Maybe he's matured past that at age 44.
Maybe it's time, or he's learned from his grandchildren how to do a better one.
Okay, I think we spent enough time on Philip Rivers, but it was at least talking about, because Tyler Warren, Jonathan Taylor, those have been two of the most important players at their position in fantasy football. So it's just very unfortunate that we're kind of to this point. Real quickly, just some general fantasy football playoff advice. Dalton, I don't know how many different things you brought. I have a couple. I'll lead us off here with the first thing to kind of reconsider as we enter the playoffs is just your roster construction. We talk about this every year. As the season goes on, depth becomes a little bit less important. Obviously, you still want to have options. You want to have, you don't want to have one receiver get hurt and then you're toast. Ideal, as long as it's not JSN. You want to have options, but also it becomes more important to secure some running back handcuffs. And then if you're streaming, whether it's tight end, whether it is defense, if you still play with leagues that have defense, which I have a league where I still need defenses, look ahead at the schedule. Unfortunately, at tight end, the Bengals play tight ends who are all probably rostered. So you can't just go pluck whoever the Bengals are playing against. But just from a defensive perspective, you look like if you have a bye this week, the Chiefs get the Titans in week 16. That's probably a pretty good one to target. If you need a defense for this week, the Jags are probably going to be by far the most popular. They play the Jets. I don't even know if Tyrod Taylor is playing this week. Don't know what that'll look like for the Jets. The Cowboys, if you want to really gamble, they play the Commanders in the fantasy championship. Will Jaden Daniels be playing? Who knows? The Jags, or excuse me, the the Cowboys also get the Vikings this week too. So like if you want to play against JJ McCarthy, it's not usually the worst idea in the world. The Saints, they play the Panthers this week, which could be pretty hit or miss for a fantasy defense, but they get the Jets and the Titans after that. So a couple of nice matchups for defenses that you maybe aren't usually thinking of in that spot. And then probably most importantly, which is what I kind of teased at the beginning of the show, you should really be looking at those RB handcuffs because there are guys every year who win leagues. And some of those guys this year look at, Blake Corum, I think he's about a third owned in Yahoo League, so you can probably still go get him. Emmanuel Wilson should be owned in just about every 12-team league, I would have to imagine. I mean, we got news today that Jacobs, his knee got stiff on him, I guess, during the game, had another MRI. Don't really know what's going on with that. We have proof of concept with Wilson, had like 30 touches and a couple touchdowns in the one game he was the starter. Brian Robinson to back up CMC. Tank Bigsby, another one. I know easy to forget about him, but if Saquon were to go down, I think both those guys in Philly, he and Will Shipley, would have value, but Bigsby is probably the more likely touchdown guy. So just a couple names to be keeping an eye on. Maybe drop a receiver that you're never going to start for one of those guys if they're out there.
Yeah, and I mean that's my biggest one is you want to hold more RB handcuffs. It's that time of the season. It's near the end. Teams that are playing poorly might shut down guys early at small injuries, and teams playing well might do the same. And then you just don't know. The wear and tear is catching up with players. Just some other quick hitting notes is like now is the time that we do have close to a full seasons of data, and you can kind of play the matchups. So if you've had two strong wide receivers all season, and you've been bouncing back and forth, it's important to check what defenses they're playing and then pay really close attention to recent production. A player that comes to mind right now, if you look at Emeka Egbuka.
I'm gonna talk about him later. Even though they play in about a half hour, but I'm still gonna talk about it.
But if let's just say a very possible situation is you got Egbuka and you got Olave in the same part of the draft.
Yeah.
Olave is the lower player. He has scored less points. He's on an uptick. Tyler Shucks looked better. It's the opposite going on in Tampa Bay. I won't jump into that, so I won't steal anymore. Similar vein, like if you're just looking at Jameson Williams raw, and he's doing the thing again, so let me change my order here to half because he drops 4 positions. Mm-hmm. But if you look at his raw numbers, he looks really good. He's scoring 10.8 points a game. But then since the bye week and since Dan Campbell took over play calling, he's had double-digit points every week and then a 0. Like he actually might be a good start going forward over some of these guys like A.J. Brown, Michael Pittman Jr., who's the wide receiver 8. Like there's some players above him. I would maybe argue George Pickens. We'll see. I can't get that monkey off my back. Same thing with a guy like Ladd McConkey, who we'll talk about later. But really pay attention if you had a deeper roster, look at who the start sets are. And then if they are players that you don't think you're going to start for the next 3 weeks, and there is a tantalizing Emmanuel Wilson out there on the waiver wire, maybe look at making the strong call and dropping somebody so you're insulating yourself with future injuries as well.
Yeah. And, one of mine kind of goes along with what you were just saying there. Like, start your studs, but also you have to be willing to throw that ADP loyalty and even some of the early season production loyalty out the window a little bit, like Emeka Egbuka, like you said, like that's the whole deal with him. Talk about more later, but he was a top 8 receiver at the first part of the season, not anywhere close to that for a pretty substantial amount of the season now, going on about half the year. Last season, these are some guys who had huge weeks down the stretch in weeks 15 through 17. This is from Ian Hartit's piece in Fantasy Life today. Tajay Spears had an RB7 week. Amir Abdullah, RB8. Jalen McMillan, wide receiver 15. Keenan Allen, wide receiver 16. And if you remember, Keenan Allen did not have a good season on the whole last year. Olamide Zaccheaus, wide receiver 18. Tyler Conklin, tight end 4, and Chig Okonkwo. He wrote his name out Chiggy. I don't know why he calls him Chiggy.
And
tight end 8 for Chig.
And then Tajay Spears, I think, was the RB3 in that span.
Yeah, he had another really big week too.
Yeah. So just really, really got to pay attention to matchups and what's going on. And then
matchups and injuries, obviously, to where guys get elevated into bigger roles than they've had all year.
Well, and way to just hijack my next one. But it's pay attention to the injury report now more than ever. Look at, like, I'm not of the mind, especially anymore, that I'm going to be doing a lot of midseason tweaking where, like, if this wide receiver 3's out, I'm going to care about the wide receiver 2's production way more, unless there's like some betting odds I'm really looking into. But now is the time where, like, on off the field splits can be really helpful for you, looking at how players performed when somebody's not playing and who's on the injury report. Who can you target for it? Like, what's going on? Why is Jordan Addison getting more yards than Justin Jefferson? Is there something here I'm missing? Surprise, it's not just JJ McCarthy. But really pay attention to those and use the season metrics we have to start leading to some of that decision making, and not just looking at how many points those guys have scored for you for every week.
Yeah, and like, so last week, full disclosure, we were going to do the show, and then back-to-back days, Dalton and I didn't feel well for various reasons, so it ended up not happening. But we were going to do the Circle of Trust topic last week, and a guy that I had on my list last week was Rome Odunze. He obviously ended up not playing last weekend. I think he's going to probably be out multiple weeks. It sounded like maybe, but he's at least questionable for this week. But he's been listed with this foot/heel injury for about half the season. And if you go back and look, about when he started getting listed with that is about when he really fell off a cliff. And turns out, I think that what they say, he has a stress fracture that he's been playing with. And, you know, sometimes guys are listed and they play really well. So there's no like 100% way to know one way or another. But sometimes if a guy's in a rut, it's not because he's bad. He might be playing through a legitimate injury. So, like, if a guy's in a rut like that and he's been listed on the injury report, just be willing to pivot and just be paying attention to what is going on with these players and teams, especially as of late, like you said.
Yeah. I think that's more important than ever. And the last, and we already kind of talked about this for me, is just if you have defenses in your league, pick up the next week's defense now. Like, same thing with the running backs. Like, go ahead and pick up who you see whoever plays the Colts next week, pick up that defense now. And don't hold on to, like, Juwan Johnson if you don't need him. You know, drop Juwan Johnson.
For the 49ers defense.
Yeah. So get the 49ers defense. You know, don't hold on to a Mark Andrews or anybody else who's clogging your roster who you're just like, they make me feel safer just in case Brock Bowers goes down with a season-ending injury.
Although Mark Andrews does play the Bengals, so
bad example, but you understand the general philosophy of it.
Yes, and you can even look ahead multiple weeks, like especially if you have a bye week and you only have to win one game for the finals. Hey, the Jags, obviously they play the Jets this week, so they may not be available, but the Jags may get dropped after the Jets this week, and they play the Colts in championship week.
So just start looking ahead, start playing it. If we had done this episode 2 weeks ago, I would have been telling you who you need to target for playoff matchups, but we're way past that. But if your league still allows trades, look at the matchups and go trade for some players who have some easy matchups.
Yeah. And, you know, the last thing that I think I want to say before we move off of this topic, and I think I throw this reminder out there about every year too, is just pay attention to your lineup throughout the week. Make sure you have a handle on what day your guys play, because we're hitting the time of year where the schedule gets really chaotic. We have Christmas Day games, we get more Saturday games. There's obviously still the Thursday games. Like, number one, make sure your lineup is set, obviously. Number two, make sure you're not putting guys in your flex spot who are playing on a Thursday or Friday or Saturday. Keep those spots open for Sunday guys. Like, yes, if Jahmyr Gibbs is your running back one, but you're starting two other running backs and he plays on Sunday, you should still put him in your flex spot, because it just like, God forbid Jahmyr Gibbs comes up sick or something on the injury report, you have more options to toss in there. And then, you know, pay attention to just the game flow of your matchup, because you get more time to kind of see it unfold more time to make those lineup adjustments. Now, obviously, you have guys that you want to start. You shouldn't go crazy about it. But let's say you get to the Sunday games and maybe both you and your opponent have had half your teams play. You probably have a pretty good feel, hey, it's going to be a close game, or hey, I'm way behind. I need some more upside, or I just need some safety. Like maybe if you're down big, you're more likely to start a Jameson Williams over a Chris Olave, just to cherry pick two guys you mentioned earlier. So just stay on top of the schedules, make sure your lineups are set, make sure they're all set in the places they should be, and don't make decisions purely based on how your matchup is going, but be willing to like let that be a tiebreaker in your decision if it comes down to it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that.
Okay, Dalton, circle of trust time. Do you want to start with guys you trust, guys you don't trust?
We can go with guys we don't trust.
Okay.
I like my vegetables first.
Okay.
Okay. I am picking somebody that I've talked about a lot on this podcast. Never positively.
Is this DeAndre Swift?
Nope, but it's close. Same position. This man is currently running back 4. But I'm putting Jahmyr Gibbs on here. Or sorry. Ooh, not Jahmyr Gibbs.
Whoa.
Devon Achane on here. For a couple of reasons. One, Miami plays 2 projected cold weather games over the next 4 weeks. 2 of them during the fantasy playoffs. Tua Tagovailoa is 0-7 in those games. But in addition to that, Devon Achane's output over the last 2 seasons in Miami has dropped off 32%. This is from Fantasy Points and Data in games under 42 degrees, which isn't even really that cold. Secondly, he did get a little banged up at the end of last week. Saw the medical tent, has a bit of a leg injury. The Dolphins are 6-7. I don't think they have high playoff hopes right now.
I mean, they're right in the thick of it.
I just realized the Chiefs are 6-7.
Yep.
Moving on. This offense has gotten somewhat back on track over the last few weeks, but I don't believe there's a long-term plan here. And I'm just going to go ahead and throw it out there that I don't believe Achane's going to be a player that I can rely on to score me those 16, 17-point games over the course of my fantasy playoffs. I'm not saying you don't start him, but I'm saying he's out of my circle of trust and that you need to be looking for your boom wigs from some other players on your roster and be really diligent about doing a roster construction that elevates you in a way that a 2 or 3 or 4 point game from Devon Achane doesn't derail your entire playoff picture.
Yeah, I think I'll just say what my point was last time you brought Achane up, which is just he gets so many of those bubble screen targets where sometimes he loses 5 yards because Tua telegraphed it and he gets destroyed right when he catches it. And sometimes he gains 5 yards because there's a little bit of room out there and he's a good player. I just think he's going to get enough volume and he's a good enough player that he's probably going to be fine. But I can appreciate going down with the take. And you are certainly hanging in there with the Devon Achane take. Hey, you didn't even mention what I think would have been maybe not the most persuasive, but up there. How about Jalen Wright?
Yeah.
Big game the other day. A guy who I think before the season started, a lot of us were excited about, and then he didn't play well in the preseason, which doesn't really mean a whole lot. But then he got hurt right away. Ollie Gordon played pretty well, and he was just buried. But Jalen Wright, I don't know, I thought he looked pretty good as a rookie, and then obviously the other day he had a huge game.
Yeah, and he looked good too. And maybe they would just take a few looks at him. I mean, there's not a lot of points for leaving Achane in there if they're not going to make the playoffs, even though they're in the thick of it, just like the Kansas City Chiefs are. But I don't think their picture's there anymore. And I think it does make sense for them. They do need a backup running back in that room that they can trust, and they've been looking for that. They tried that with Ollie Gordon earlier this season. Mm-hmm. And just to get some looks, I mean, that's what the end of the season is for a team that has aspirations for next year and isn't just going into the draft hoping to get everybody, but a team that just needs some core pieces, which is what the Miami Dolphins are, to figure out who on their roster they can trust next year and not draft that position over.
Yeah. This is going to sound really mean when I say it this way, but outside of not being quite as good and also being on a worse offense, The other thing that sets a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs apart from a guy like Devon Achane not being as good as Gibbs, obviously, but very good, like maybe 85% of Jahmyr Gibbs, is Gibbs will get a lot of goal line work. Achane just doesn't really. Ollie Gordon's got a lot, like Jalen Wright potentially could be getting some. So that's obviously another detractor for Achane is that he just doesn't get very much of that work inside the 5 yard line as a runner. Now he gets other kind like up the middle, he doesn't. He gets screen passes, they run him out wide, whatever, but he just doesn't get the traditional running back looks inside the 5.
Yeah. So for all I have to say, he's out of my circle of trust. I don't think he was ever in my circle of trust,
Yeah.
despite the year performance. But I'm going down with the ship, and we might go as deep as the Titanic went, but we'll do it.
37.5, 19, 19, and 17 his last month of.
Yeah, we're not looking at the numbers here.
Okay, a guy that I did look very closely at the numbers, Dalton, and they are not pretty, and that is Emeka Egbuka, who is, if you're listening to this podcast, has already played, and you know what happens on Thursday night. If you're watching this live and you're struggling over an Emeka Egbuka decision, I'm telling you, I think you should probably just let it ride on the bench this week. Since week 6, think about it, we're in week 15? Since week 6, he has scored more than 8 points one time. In 2 months, he has over 8 points one time. And that was a big game, 20.5 points. In that stretch, which again, over half the season, wide receiver 43. Obviously, he's a guy, like we said, wide receiver 14 is where he's at on the season. And, I think there's a lot of variables at play here. He's not a bad player. I don't think he is probably as great as maybe people thought at the very beginning. I still think he's very good, but he's not. Like, I think you probably could have traded Egbuka for Malik Neighbors straight up at a certain point in Dynasty earlier this year. I think that ship has sailed. I think we've seen enough. At this point, that ship has probably sailed. And then just like, he had the hamstring injury in week 6. People thought he'd missed time, but he didn't. But how healthy has he been for some of these games? The offense as a whole just hasn't ever been healthy all year. Baker's been banged up. The O-line's been banged up. We know Bucky Irving missed a lot of time. Mike Evans is finally back tonight after missing a pretty substantial chunk of time. Chris Godwin, we know he's played like 4 or 5 games this season. But since week 7, and this was as of last week, I didn't go repull the stat, but he only had 2.5 points last week, so I can't imagine it got better. Since week 7, just 51.7% of his targets have been deemed catchable, and 2/3 of those targets, 66% of catchable targets is the second lowest among 56 wideouts with 50 targets as of last week. Jerry Jeudy was the only guy that was worse. I think a big part of that and why there is maybe potential for him to turn it around and be usable in your last week or two in the playoffs is not having Mike Evans and having to play that X receiver spot. Chris Godwin has been put back in the slot a lot more these last couple of weeks. Again, prior to last week, the previous 3 weeks, Emeka Egbuka's slot rates 44, 37, and 40%. 2 weeks ago, 21%. No, sorry. First 3 weeks of the season, those were his slot rates, 44, 37, and 40. 2 weeks ago, he was at 21%, and that number has been around there the last couple of weeks with Godwin back. He's had a much more volatile profile because he hasn't been getting those inside kind of easy button looks. And he just also, think about him as a prospect coming out. People thought he was a slot only guy. I think he's proven he's more than that, but also probably had to bite off a little bit more than he could chew, being tossed out there at the X receiver, especially when he's not been 100% healthy for part of that this season. So again, maybe Mike Evans comes back, he plays some snaps, and the Egbuka production returns because he gets to return to the inside more. But I just don't see how I could throw him out there not knowing how Mike Evans snaps are going to shake out tonight and just going forward, what that hierarchy is going to look like in the room.
Yeah. Obviously, I mentioned him in the leadoff. Didn't know you had him here. He was somebody I thought about putting here and just chose not to, but he's definitely not a player I'm trusting. Baker falls into the same category, and I think some of the decline has gone hand in hand. Since week 7, when Baker Mayfield suffered an injury that landed him on the injury report in week 6, Baker's highest output is 22 points, but his highest yards outpoint is 240 yards in a game. Majority of his higher scoring, which really there's a 17 in there, and then it's 12 and under for every other week. His higher scoring outcomes have been rush yards and a rushing touchdown mixed in there, which isn't good for fantasy production. I think Chris Godwin has actually just come back and gotten a little healthier after another couple of games, which has been detrimental to Emeka because Chris Godwin is just still a really good player. In the last 3 weeks, Chris Godwin has a higher target share than Emeka Egbuka does. And like you said, I think with Godwin getting healthier, they want him in the slot because of what he provides. And they're putting him there. Emeka's going out. Sounds like Mike Evans will be back this week, so he might be relegated to the flanker role, which could be good for his fantasy production. But end of the day, I think Baker Mayfield is either dealing with something or we are finally seeing what the loss of last year's offensive coordinator really meant for this team, and they are having trouble adjusting their offensive situations after some teams got tape on them for the first 8 weeks of the season. But either way, the Bucs offense, except the run game, has really been sputtering the last 4 or 5 weeks, and I don't really know how they're going to get better. And hashtag my Panthers might win the division and go to the playoffs.
You brought up the run game. I don't have the tweet in front of me, so I'm not going to be able to read off the exact stats. But did you see the tweet about the Bucs backfield going around, ranking all of the run? Tucker, Rachaad White, and Bucky Irving, and like EPA per run, just like all these different advanced metrics, like success rate on third down, fourth down. All of these. Did you see any of those?
No, but was Sean Tucker one?
Well, actually, he was on some. Rachaad White was probably number 1 on more than any of those guys, which again,
don't love that.
I think is why you probably shouldn't treat those stats as gospel. I certainly am not trying to treat them that way. But I did say earlier this year, I thought Rachaad White actually kind of looked a little bit better than he had in previous years as a runner. I just thought it was interesting. Bucky Irving was not ranking particularly well compared to his backfield mates, and he did just have a not super encouraging snap share. So that's just something to monitor.
Well, Sean Tucker got the touchdown at the 1 yard line. Yeah. They put him in to be the power back. It's definitely interesting. As a long time, I think you and I actually both, long time Sean Tucker stands. I believe we flag planted him over Rachaad White their rookie seasons, and we said, "Heart condition be damned, this is the guy." But would love if it worked out for both of them, but not Bucky Irving. Love Bucky. I just am a strong Tucker advocate.
Okay, your next guy out of the circle of trust.
Yeah, this one hurts me to do, and this one is out of character, unlike Devon and Shade. But I got to put Ladd McConkey here at this point.
It's funny. I have Justin Jefferson here, and in a league that you and I are in, I am staring down a Justin Jefferson versus Ladd McConkey decision, and it just should not be that way in week 15.
At least we both agree it's a hard decision. This is one of those things where coming into draft season next year, I'm going to tell everybody to take the discount we're probably going to get on Ladd McConkey because I still think he's a really great player. And none of his ability to run routes and everything else hasn't fallen off. But the Chargers offense is largely sputtering. And it's really impacted Ladd McConkey. So right now he's the wide receiver 23, which isn't too bad. But you go back to the week Justin Herbert hurt his hand. Since then, 1.3 points by week, 9.9 points, 1.2 points. His target share ranks 4th on the team. His ADOT is the lowest it's been in his career over that 4-week span. In fact, every wide receiver on the team has seen a lower ADOT since Justin Herbert's hand injury. That's decreased by at least 2 yards. They're not chucking the ball anymore. They're taking really low dinky dunk passes. To make things worse, Justin Herbert is seeing the 3rd highest time to pressure rate in the NFL. So he's injured. He doesn't have time to throw the ball, and they have guys in their face. And then to make things more perplexing is what I'll say here. Over the last 5 weeks, Ladd McConkey's slot rate has been usurped by Quentin Johnston. Quentin Johnston has run more slot routes than Ladd McConkey. Ladd McConkey has played flanker, and he's played X more than he's played the slot. I'm not doing the whole bit of white guy plays slot only, but that is Ladd McConkey's most encouraging skill set and his ability to get yak.
It's just kind of like that's the best place for Quentin Johnston too, probably to be a functional part of an offense. I agree with you. You want to put your better player in his better spot to maximize your offense, but that's always like on paper was kind of the weird thing about this offense. Like, okay,
Yeah.
who's going to kick out and play outside for them
Well,
consistently?
and the interesting thing is on targets in the slot, this is from fantasy data. On the year for the Chargers offense, a target to Quentin Johnston out of the slot is worth 0.2 EPA, 0.02 EPA. I'm sorry. A target to Lad McConkey
is worth 0.2. I think we're cooking.
Yeah. A target to Lad McConkey is worth 1.7 EPA per play. That's saying 1 in 7 of those results in a touchdown.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, and I'm sure it has to do with the injuries and the way this offense is set up right now, Lad's not getting it, and I don't think they're changing that philosophy anytime soon. This is probably the healthiest the Chargers are going to be going into the playoffs, and they're going to continue to do. I mean, they beat the Eagles doing it. So, end of the day, Lad McConkey's out of my circle of trust. I'm not saying directly drop him, but like there are very few situations where I'm starting him. You likely made the playoffs without him, and you need to use whoever was there. Like Michael Wilson versus Lad McConkey, I'm starting Michael Wilson rest of season.
Is Marvin Harrison Jr. back? We know what the splits look like with and without Marvin Harrison Jr. for him.
I think Marvin Harrison Jr. might be back.
That's a tough sell then. Lad McConkey, we talked about receivers earlier in Roma Dunze on the injury report with a foot injury. Lad McConkey, limited practice back-to-back days with a foot issue right now. So that's just another thing you've got going on with him. Top it all off, Dalton, have you looked at the weather forecast for your local Kansas City football team this Sunday, where the Los Angeles Chargers will be playing?
Sure
football?
Have. -5 wind chill up to -15. It's going to be a cold one.
Yeah,
not so like the Brazil game.
That's another thing that is unideal, probably, for the Chargers, I would have to imagine. Not to say that they won't move the ball at all. I'm sure they probably will. But again, could be a potential tiebreaker if you're looking at Lad for somebody else and you're looking for a reason to start one guy or another.
Yeah.
Going to be very cold. Also, I would pay attention to whether or not Trent McDuffie plays this week as well.
Yeah, locked him up in week 1. Could do it again. Who do you have as your last out?
So I have Justin Jefferson, and unlike you, I'm doing the opposite. I'm not going down with the take, which was to trade for Justin Jefferson a couple weeks ago. I'm reneging on that. It's been the worst it's ever been since I said to buy low on him. You could buy a lot lower on him right now if you can still trade in your league. He's another guy. He's wide receiver 25 on the season, but even that astronomically low number for Justin Jefferson does not capture what it's been for the last 6-8 weeks. And even that, like wide receiver 25, Rashid Rice is wide receiver 30 on the season. He's almost caught Justin Jefferson, and he missed, 6 weeks? JJ's averaging 9.6 points per game. But since week 9, when JJ McCarthy came back into the lineup, so that's been 6 games, he's averaging 6.4 points per game. He hasn't reached double digits in over a month. In the last month, he's had 9, 6, 6, and 4, not receptions. Those are his targets. 9, 6, 6, and 4. What are we doing, Viking? What are we doing, JJ McCarthy? Like, what in the hell is going on that you're only giving this guy 4 targets in a game last week? He hasn't had 100 yards in a game since October 5th. He only has 2 touchdowns on the season. And again, he's a guy, he's always capable of going off because he's Justin Jefferson, and he could do that. And it would be really funny if he did have a blow up last 3 weeks and he ends up being like the wide receiver 9 or something like that. It's like, oh, he, not quite what you hope for, but pretty good when you get further away from it. But it's like, no, he's been an abject disaster for over a month now. He's been like wide receiver 45 and just killing your team. So if he is somehow on your playoff team, which unless you traded for him when I told you to, is probably really, really hard to have JJ and make the playoffs. I'm just not. I can't do it. I have to see him prove it. As crazy as that sounds, I have to see him prove it with JJ McCarthy on my bench for a week before I put him back in my lineup. You want to guess what his 17 game pace is with JJ McCarthy at quarterback? Receptions, yards, and touchdowns.
Yes.
Okay, give me his receptions. What you if I told you over under 60 receptions, are you taking the over or under on
I
that?
was going to say like 72.
Okay, it's 68 receptions is that pace, which again, this is a guy that's 110 catches in his sleep.
Yards, I would say 880.
699 and 5 touchdowns.
I was gonna say, you gave me the 2, so I was just gonna.
Yeah, you could have done the mental math there, but it is. I just like I don't understand. Like he just put up 1,000 yards in 2023 with Kirk Cousins, Josh Dobbs, and Nick Mullins at quarterback. By the way, he played 10 games that year. He's played every game this year. I just like I could never have imagined it would be this bad for Justin Jefferson this year. I truly couldn't have. And we're finally seeing signs of frustration for him. And you just can't start him. You can't do it.
No, which really hard because this week will be the week that Justin Jefferson and JJ McCarthy meet up, or maybe Justin Jefferson needs to take 9 out for breakfast so they could actually have some work. I will say, like the Washington game, I'm willing to give a pass because they were beating them so badly, so quickly, it didn't really matter. But every other week, it has been a terrible experience. Like Jordan Addison is out targeting Justin Jefferson right now. Jordan Addison's a good player. He's not Justin Jefferson.
No. Can we just throw him a screen? Can we throw him a screen pass? Like we just get him the ball?
Can we throw? Can we throw the ball?
That actually should be the question. Okay, how about guys that we're feeling positively about, Dalton, that are in our circle of trust?
Yeah, I think so. We fall to the symptom all the time where a guy starts off very poorly, and then we just stop talking about them, and we forget they're really even around. And I think a player that's really emblematic of this right now is Chase Brown.
Yeah.
Chase
I
Brown
had him. So last week I had him on my notes for last week. I cut him this week just because I was like, only doing 2 instead of 3, unlike last week. But yes, I agree with you.
So that's great. I'm glad we didn't actually have duplicates yet so far. We'll see.
Yeah.
Still one more guy. You don't know. But Chase Brown, since the return of Joe Flacco, hasn't posted a single-digit fantasy outcome. He's had 70 and 80% snap shares in all the games, even with Pirine returning. He's up to the overall RB18. But if you just go from Joe Burrow's return onward, he's the RB8. His red zone touch share is 6th in the NFL. His target share among running backs is 1st in the NFL. He had an 11-target game. That's why. But he's getting a ton of targets. This offense is facilitating and moving the ball down the field. Chase Brown's getting the ability to work for them. And his playoff schedule is really, really good. He gets this week Baltimore. That's a pretty beatable run defense. Then he gets Miami, who currently rank 3rd in the NFL in points allowed to running backs. And then he gets Arizona, who currently rank 6th in the NFL in points allowed to running backs. So he's set up for everything to do well. Now, Joe Burrow mysteriously hinted that he might retire. So as long as Joe Burrow doesn't pull an Andrew Luck and retire midseason, then we have a pretty good end-of-season stretch for Chase Brown. This would have been a guy, if we had a trade show before the trade deadline, I probably would have highlighted more about your fantasy playoffs looking at the schedule. But he's a guy I would be starting going forward every week. And this, just so you know, the reason Jonathan Taylor almost made it out of my circle of trust is I did sit there for a minute. And I was like, if I was somehow, like if I had Jahmyr Gibbs, Jonathan Taylor, and Chase Brown, and 4 stud wide receivers, like would I start Chase Brown over Jonathan Taylor?
I don't think it would matter who you start if that's your team.
Well, it could be like a 6-team league. Those exist. And I think I would still start Jonathan Taylor. He's still a better player. It is hard, but like Chase Brown to me is like a top 10 running back rest of season. And he should be like, you shouldn't be thinking about guys like Ken Walker or even somebody like Jaylen Warren if you're getting a little trickier, or Rico Dowdle, Derrick Henry. I would start Chase Brown over Derrick Henry in a heartbeat. So those are just some names that I would take out for Chase Brown.
Yeah, I think you said it right, where the usage, the quarterback being back, and the schedule are all kind of coalescing in a very positive way for Chase Brown right now. Because outside of just the offense not being its normal self at one point in the season, his usage also kind of dipped to the point where it's like, okay, if their offense is not very good and he isn't getting all of the opportunities anymore, this is probably a low end RB2. And even if the offense were not good right now, the usage is back to what you want to see. And also the quarterback and the offense is back to where you want to see. So just kind of everything is going right for the Chase Brown outlook right now.
Yeah. So I'm super in. I think it's going to be a great one. Who do you have teed up as your first circle of trust?
This one's a lot less exciting. It's Kareem Hunt. Like I think if you have Kareem Hunt, you probably like. I'm not saying I'm starting him in every instance. Like if I have the team that you said where Chase Brown's my RB3, I'm probably not starting Kareem Hunt. But like he's got to be inside the top 24 running backs every week, don't you think?
I mean, he's RB21 right now.
Yeah.
Plays a gettable Chargers team this week. Yeah, I think
the Titans the week after that.
Yeah, I mean, he is just kind of ho-hum doing his thing.
Oh, yeah, like it is not a fun experience to, number one, watch the Chiefs play, to number two, watch Kareem Hunt. Like, actually, Kareem Hunt's maybe one of the more fun things about the Chiefs just because he tries so hard, but it's just 3 yards in a cloud of dust. But you know what that 3 yards in a cloud of dust has been getting you a lot of weeks, Dalton? 15 carries for 48 yards and a touchdown, maybe 2. He has 8 touchdowns on the season since Pacheco went down. So week 8 through this most recent game, Pacheco obviously came back, played an annoying amount of snaps before Kareem Hunt did finally start getting more of the work as that game went on, and the Chiefs, I guess, got more serious. I don't know. Kareem Hunt's the RB17 in that stretch, and you just look at the game log. 16.7, 12, 12.7, 18.5, 8.5, and 9. Like he's gonna score a touchdown more often than not because he gets every single short yardage look for the Chiefs. If it's not a pass, it's a Kareem Hunt run. Like he gets every single short yardage carry for this team. There's no Isaiah Pacheco. They're not handing it off to a tight end. They're not QB sneaking, obviously, with a tight end or a quarterback. It is the Kareem Hunt show at the goal line. And if he doesn't score a touchdown, you're still getting a guy who's getting a lot of touches. Maybe he breaks a 15, 20-yard run, which he has a couple this year, and he gets you 5-6 points. But more often than not, I think he's going to score a touchdown. And I get it's not exciting, but hey, man, 12 points is 12 points. And I think he's going to get you 12 points more often than he gets you 4 or 5 points going forward, even with Pacheco back. Like, they clearly wanted to give Pacheco the work at the beginning of the game. Even if Pacheco continues to start, Hunt's going to get more carries and he's going to get the high-value carries.
So right now, Kareem Hunt's the RB21 in half PPR.
Mm-hmm.
Would you start Kareem Hunt over Kenneth Walker?
Yeah, I think so. But that kind of depends on, like, if I'm shooting for the moon, Kenneth Walker. If I'm in about any other scenario, so looking for a nice floor or just like neutral, I think it's Kareem Hunt.
What about RJ Harvey?
I think I'm starting RJ Harvey over Kareem Hunt.
Tony Pollard?
I'm starting Kareem Hunt over Tony Pollard.
Kyle Monangai. Some are saying the new Kareem Hunt. The new old Kareem Hunt.
I think Kareem Hunt, because I just feel I'm more secure in his role.
Okay, let's get a little wild with this. A guy that was drafted in the first round pretty frequently. Ashton Jeanty.
I'm starting Jeanty still over Kareem Hunt, I think.
All right.
But the fact that we even that we're bringing up those names, I think tells you that he should be a pretty locked and loaded starter for most people.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think at a minimum, he's a really good flex option. And like you said, it's a floor play where you need a certain amount of points, and then you surround that with some ceiling plays.
Jamison Williams and Kareem Hunt in my 2 flex spots. Let's go.
What could go wrong? 2 players that have been suspended multiple times.
They're not going to get suspended mid-game, I don't think.
Ideally. All right, my last guy in my circle of trust. This one, I was actually surprised that I decided on this in the outcome. But first of all, he's the wide receiver 16. He hasn't had a bad season, but it's DK Metcalf. So 2 weeks ago, DK Metcalf wouldn't have been in here with the Rodgers hand injury. And then they come out and they throw the ball at the highest deep rate they've thrown it all season, have the deepest completion they've had all season in that game.
Did you see the clip of, I guess, Big Ben, like Ben Roethlisberger, does a podcast where like does like a stream where he just watches Steelers games and eats Chipotle and like reacts to the game? I don't know. I saw a TikTok the other day. I saw a clip. Number one, absolute vet move by Big Ben, taking a chip, dip it in the queso, and then dip it in the bowl. That man knows how. That man knows how to work it.
Just don't ask him about what he did at a bar in 2000.
But anyway, in that clip, it shows the deep shot to DK Metcalf right off the bat, and he made the same comment, like, couldn't throw deep at all in November, but it's December, baby, and we're going deep now. So like, it was a thing for sure.
Yeah. I don't know where it came from, but they suddenly started doing it. They had the highest average depth of target across the entire wide receiver group last week. And then they're set up with a really incredible end of season stretch. So this week they play Miami, who allows the 2nd most points to wide receivers. Then they play the Lions, who allow the 8th most points to wide receivers. And then I didn't even know this when I was looking at it, but the Browns allow the 13th most points to wide receivers. So there's a pretty good schedule for him. The Steelers team isn't giving up. They aren't going away. They're trying to make a playoff run. They're going to make the push. Their offense is having a turnaround. And he is a player. The reason I put him in my circle of trust is this is a real player I could see having a lineup decision with come your playoff match.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think this is probably, of the names we've mentioned so far, this is probably the scariest one in the circle of trust, because I think I could pretty easily tell myself the story of DK Metcalf goes 17, 12, and 21 the next 3 weeks. And, you know, DK Metcalf, even with things on paper setting up well, could also go 4, 7, 5 the next 3 weeks.
Yes. And just some names around there that I'm starting him over. Easy one, take the low-hanging fruit, Michael Pittman.
Yeah.
I don't
want to say Emeka Egbuka.
Yeah, I'm starting him over Emeka Egbuka. Jalen Waddle, who's the wide receiver.
He doesn't have a touchdown yet in this prime game.
Yeah. Is that odd?
Yeah.
Oh no. Fingers crossed. The only real start sit decision in that like clear wide receiver 2 scoring range, I would struggle between him and AJ Brown right now, and that is a real one that I would have a hard time coming out of it either way. AJ Brown's picked it up the last 3 weeks, but this Eagles offense still feels kind of fake. But
it's just a high school offense. I've seen that thrown around on Twitter a lot, and I really agree.
But if the Steelers are going to keep dialing up the deep passes, DK Metcalf 6th in the league in wide receiver target share. So like the opportunity is there. We know he's a good player. He's not the best wide receiver in football, but he's certainly a really good player. Mm-hmm. And if there are some deep shots too, like just last week, that was a beautiful ball by Aaron Rodgers, but also a great catch. I've seen so many guys drop that.
He also had a touchdown, like a very near touchdown. He could have had a bigger day last week.
Yeah. So DK staunchly in my circle of trust. He's probably locked and loaded a wide receiver 2 spot. And if like you're an unfortunate T Higgins owner and he doesn't go this week, like DK is a good option for that. But also if there are just some players with some worse matchups, DK is the way that I would lean.
Buddy, it's like you haven't even paid attention to anything about T Higgins in your entire life. Did you not see him walk up the hill on the way to practice today? He is playing this week.
Oh, I didn't know he walked up the hill. Oh, it's the hill, man. They need to get a Twitch stream where it's just the players walking in so I can just catch that live.
There was a beat reporter that tweeted out the video and everybody was going crazy quote tweeting it. For those that don't know T. Higgins, they have a hill like that you can cut across. What is it like? He always when he's playing, he'll like when he's healthy, he always walks up the hill, something like that.
That's the system. It's always been true.
Yeah, yeah. So he's playing this week, but yeah, no. Generally speaking, yes, I can get on board with the DK call, while acknowledging that because he's DK Metcalf, there is definitely a level of risk involved there. A guy who I don't really feel like there's a ton of risk with right now is Jakobi Meyers, very, very firmly in my circle of trust. 3 straight games of 12.8 points or more. Since he's been a Jacksonville Jaguar, he's gone 22 catches for 284 yards and 1 touchdown in 5 games. And like that's the thing, like he only has 1 touchdown. So maybe some positive touchdown regression for him these next couple of weeks with all the volume he's getting. It's funny. I saw somebody say, can we get Brock Bowers somewhere else and see how good this guy actually is? Look how good Jakobi is playing now that he's not in the Raiders. I mean, the things we've always said about Jakobi Meyers, like good player, can get open, all 3 levels, is better on the outside than people think. I think he's a guy that kind of got slated as a slot only guy early in his career, and he's proven that he can be more than that. If you're just talking about this week specifically, Jakobi Meyers has a 25% target share versus man coverage and 14% against zone as a Jaguar. That's from Ian Hartitz. They play the Jets this week, who play man coverage the 6th most in the NFL. So I'm expecting a pretty big Jakobi Meyers game this week. Yeah. And since week 10, this dude has a 73% catch percentage, which is tied for 13th. His 22 receptions are tied for 11th. His yards, 284, are 15th. And then 6 contested catches tied for 5th for Jakobi Meyers. So, I mean, he's just legitimately been good and the number 1 receiver in this offense. I know Brian Thomas Jr. has missed some time in that. The only risk I could see in that is if BTJ has a really big last couple of weeks as he gets healthier. But I think you just got to trust Jakobi Meyers a lot more than Brian Thomas Jr. at this point. And Jakobi Meyers right now is in a really nice zone with Trevor Lawrence. And he's really, honestly, raised the floor of this offense. And that is something that Jacksonville as a whole really, really needed. And he's been a favorite target of Trevor Lawrence's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Jakobi Meyers is playing so good that Matt Harmon put out a video that said why Jakobi Meyers was the key to unlocking Brian Thomas Jr. in this offense. Because no one wants to give Jakobi Meyers his flowers. But he's such a consistent player. He really does fit what Trevor Lawrence needs. If you just listen to people who watch the film, Trevor Lawrence kind of locks on to his first read.
Yeah.
And the great thing about Jakobi Meyers is he's a smooth route runner and does the route correctly.
Yeah, he's usually open.
Yeah. So Trevor just knows where he's going to be as soon as the play starts, and the look is there and the play is there, and then they convert it. And that's really been what this Jacksonville team has needed these last couple of weeks. It might have been there with Travis Hunter, had they let him run real routes before they just got him injured. But
going to be a potentially interesting receiver room next year if Jakobi is back.
Yeah, Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver 3. But
maybe.
Yeah, but this is a team that's been on the up and up with the addition of Jakobi Meyers. One of the few times that a in-season trade has actually been this dynamic and effective for a team that's making a playoff push. But I like that take a lot. Another player where you have to look at current production really close. I would start him over Cortland Sutton. I'd probably start him over Rome Odunze right now, even if Rome plays. Wan'Dale Robinson, I would probably start him over Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, I mean, he's the wide receiver 16 over the last 6 weeks, and that's even including he was playing pretty limited snaps for the first couple of those weeks, or not his full allotment of snaps. So yeah, I'd probably start him. Talk about our Dolphin. I think I'd rather play him over Jalen Waddle right now.
Yeah, I would definitely start him over Jalen Waddle as well. I would start him over George Pickens, but I'm not going to go down that. I'm not going to do 2 ships in one episode here.
All right, Dalton, anything else before we hop out of here?
I think that's it. As long as Amika hasn't scored, otherwise we're not posting this to YouTube.
Well, it's live streaming, so I have bad news for you.
No,
He had
delete the VOD.
he had a target last I looked, but he was 0 for 0. Let's just do one more live check in. Nope, still nothing. I think
Nope.
the Falcons have had the ball for a majority of the time.
Yep,
we've been talking.
Baker has 11 yards, Bucky has 11 yards carrying, and Bucky has 11 yards receiving. So there's your game, folks.
There's your live update on this podcast of the Tampa game. We'll let you know who won next week when you tune in. And on that note, that is going to do it for episode 189 of the Half Point Per Podcast. Give us a follow, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Half Point Per Pod. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Link to all of those things in the show notes. As always, our podcast is available anywhere you get your podcasts, and leave us a 5-star review wherever you do consume your podcast. Thank you all so much for listening today, and we'll talk to you again next week.